All right, so let's dive into a question that the New Yorker decided to tackle head on. How much money did Donald Trump and his family actually make from his time as president? We're going to follow the money, and let me tell you, the path it takes is, well, it's pretty wild. Now, to be super clear right from the start, this investigation isn't about the money his businesses were already making. This is all about the new income, the deals, and the revenue streams that the reporter argues would have been completely unimaginable if he hadn't been in the White House. We're trying to isolate the presidency profit, so to speak.
And here's the number they landed on. 3.4 billion with a B. That is the grand total the report estimates the family pocketed thanks to the presidency. So the obvious next question is, how on earth did they get to a number that big? Let's start digging.
So, how do you even begin to make sense of a number like $3.4 billion? Well, according to this investigation, you actually have to start small, like really small. Because sometimes the most interesting stuff isn't in the huge deals, but in things like t-shirts and, yes, beer koozies. Okay, so here's a really crucial distinction the report lays out. You've got your normal campaign merch, the hats, the signs, all that stuff. Money from that goes to the campaign. Standard practice. But then there was a whole separate online store run by the Trump Organization. It sold stuff that looked almost identical. But here's the kicker. All the profit from that store went straight into Donald Trump's personal accounts.
And we're not talking chump change here. This small stuff, we're talking slippers, mugs, you name it, added up to an estimated $20 million, which, as the reporting points out, created this kind of bizarre situation where the candidate's private company was directly competing for dollars with his own political campaign.
All right, moving on from the merch, the scale we're talking about is about to get a whole lot bigger. The next major piece of this financial puzzle, according to the investigation, comes from foreign money. It seems an earlier promise not to chase any new foreign deals, well, that promise went right out the window. So one of the biggest examples the report focuses on involves Jared Kushner. So he leaves the White House, and with basically zero experience in private equity, he starts a new firm. Now get this. According to the investigation, Saudi Arabia's own expert panel took one look and said, nope, bad idea, citing his inexperience. But then the Crown Prince stepped in, overruled his own people, and boom, Kushner's firm gets a $2 billion investment. And that Saudi deal? It wasn't a one-off. The report details a whole wave of new Trump-branded projects that popped up, especially in the Gulf and in Southeast Asia. The family basically put up a giant open for business sign, and it looks like a lot of countries were eager to make a deal.
Let's just take one example, a brand new golf course project in Vietnam. We're talking about a resort planned to be 3 times the size of New York's Central Park. Disclosures show a $5 million licensing fee has already been paid out for that, and that's just the down payment on a deal the report says could be worth over $50 million.
Okay, you might want to buckle up for this next part, because now we're pivoting to the single biggest and probably most confusing source of income that the investigation found. This is where the numbers go from big to just astronomical. Welcome to the wild, wild west of cryptocurrency. You are seeing that right. More than 2/3 of that $3.4 billion total, over $2.3 billion, is traced back to a series of crypto ventures. This is the absolute giant in this whole story, so let's try to break down how the report says this all worked. The first step into this world was actually pretty simple: selling NFTs. Just think of them as digital trading cards, like baseball cards, but on your computer. And in this case, the cards were, well, they were cartoon images of Donald Trump dressed up as a superhero, an astronaut, that kind of thing. Okay, so from digital trading cards, things got way more ambitious. The report then points to this company started by his sons called World Liberty Financial. Their big idea was to sell their own crypto tokens, which they claimed would give the buyers voting rights on whatever crypto projects they decided to do next. And that token sale? It raised an incredible amount of money, $550 million. But here's the key detail from the report. The deal was apparently structured so that a full 75% of that cash, we're talking over $400 million, went directly to the Trump Organization. So from there, they moved on to something even more complex: stablecoins. Now, a stablecoin isn't like Bitcoin. It's not supposed to be a crazy investment. It's designed to always be worth $1. Think of it less like a stock and more like a digital version of cash you'd keep in a checking account.
And this is where another huge foreign investment comes into play. A company based in the UAE poured $2 billion into this stablecoin project. The report explains that the setup basically works like a bank. The firm holds the $2 billion, invested in something safe like government bonds, and then just pockets the interest. A 4% return on $2 billion, that's about $80 million a year and pretty passive income.
Now for the final piece of this crypto bonanza, which, according to the report, involves Truth Social. The company's stock was a meme stock. Its price was sky high, but had almost no connection to its actual revenue. So the investigation describes this really clever move. They used that crazy high stock price to raise a ton of cash, and then they immediately turn around and use that cash to buy actual tangible assets, like $2.4 billion in Bitcoin. And what was the result of that maneuver? All of a sudden, a social media company that wasn't making much money now had over $3 billion in real assets on its balance sheet. The investigation calculates that this move alone instantly added about $1 billion to the value of Donald Trump's personal shares in the company. Okay, we've gone from merch to foreign real estate to a mountain of crypto cash. We've seen the numbers. But the investigation ends by asking a much bigger question. Beyond the sticker shock of it all, why does any of this really matter? And here's the first critical point the report makes. As far as anyone can tell, all of this appears to be perfectly legal. See, the ethics laws for a U.S. president don't really forbid these kinds of business deals. They just say you have to disclose them. The whole system is built on the idea that we, the voters, will be the ultimate judge of what is and isn't okay. But the whole point of the article is that legal isn't the end of the story. The journalist puts it perfectly right here. When you see this kind of, quote, frenzy to make money, you have to ask the question, when these people and these countries are handing over billions of dollars, what exactly are they paying for? And that question leads to all these potential long-term risks the analysis brings up. The big fear is that this could normalize using the highest office in the land for massive personal profit, that it could wear away our trust in government, open up new back channels for foreign influence, and maybe even change the very nature of the presidency, from a job of public service to just another way to get incredibly rich. Which really leaves us with this final, very powerful question that hangs over all these findings. If holding the presidency becomes the quickest way to make billions of dollars, how does that change the kind of person who wants the job? And what will their reasons be? That's really the multi-billion-dollar question, isn't it?